Hello everyone, my name is Mr. B and welcome back to my channel. So about 2 weeks or so ago, a game that I was pretty hyped about, pretty excited about was finally released, and that game in question is Honkai Impact Star Rail, a new gacha game developed by Hoyoverse, the same people who developed Honkai Impact 3rd and also Genshin Impact. I started playing the game around the time of release and it's been some time since then, and safe to say I am pretty damn addicted to it. Whenever I'm doing something else like work or writing a script for a video or whatever, I'm just thinking, man, I could be playing Stardew right now. I could do my dailies. I could do grinding in this game. I cannot stop thinking about this game, and I can't just cannot stop playing the game. This game has sucked me in, and honestly, I was quite surprised about it because as much hype as I have for this game, I didn't really expect to like this game as much as I have. And because of that, I feel like, you know what? Why not make a video about it? Why not make a video just talking about the game, just giving you guys some of my thoughts and what I like and don't like about the game. As always though, this is just my own point of view. This is just on my own personal opinions about the game. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. But I will of course try to be as objective and as non-biased as I can. Now to start off, I feel like if I would want to talk about Star Rail, I feel like it's only fair if I would do comparisons with some other games of the same nature. And because of that, I can't really compare Star Rails with say games like Arknights or Azure Lane because they're just way two different games. So with that in mind, I would want to compare Star Rail with Hoyoverse's other IP, Genshin Impact. Now, I would have loved to include Honkai Impact 3 in this, but I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Honkai Impact, and that's not to say the game is bad or anything. I do recognize how good the game is. I do recognize why people like it. Some of the clips I've seen of the story look really damn interesting, but the game just didn't really suck me in. I just never really clicked with the game. So I'm not going to talk about Honkai Impact in this video. I'm not going to draw comparisons with Honkai Impact because I don't think it's fair. So instead, I'm going to draw comparisons with Genshin because I put in way too many hours in Genshin, way too many that I would have liked, but I feel like it's fair because the two games are quite similar. And not to mention, Genshin is one of the biggest gacha games of all time and is also made by Hoyoverse. So I think it's only fair to compare Star Rail with that of Genshin. Now to start with something simple, the graphics. The graphics of course look really great. I think it runs on the same graphical engine or game engine that Genshin does, so the game does look quite similar to that of Genshin. That being said though, I feel like the game isn't as taxing compared to Genshin in the sense that whenever I play Star Rail on my phone, it heats up a lot less compared to when I play Genshin. And I think that has to do a lot with the nature of the games, especially the gameplay of the two games, which I'll be talking about later on in this video. But in terms of graphics, they're pretty similar. There's nothing really to separate them. If you like the graphics on Genshin, you're gonna love the graphics on Star Rail because both games look really pretty. Now I want to move on to the story, and in case it wasn't obvious, Star Rail is set in space. The game has you play as a trailblazer, basically the traveler, just in a different name. And you have this mysterious power known as a Stellaron inside you. You travel alongside with other groups of people, and your main task, your main job is to basically travel to other planets that has problems with this Stellaron. And that is pretty much the basic gist of the story. The game is sci-fi, but more specifically it's a sci-fi fantasy game, so it's very similar to that of Star Wars. And as someone who does like Star Wars, I'm a big fan of this genre. And while I'm not sure how far I am at the story at this point, so far from what I've experienced, the story has been largely really good. It's simple and straight to the point while also being heavy and really drew me in with some of the more emotional parts of the story. Now, comparing this with Genshin, I feel like Genshin's story is, at least at the very beginning of it, really boring. I could not tell you what happened during the Mondstadt stage of the game because I just don't remember anything of it. I do remember some stuff from Liyue because that was a bit interesting, but even then I just didn't really care much about the story. It wasn't until we reached Inazuma where the story I feel like just got way better. The tone shift and with a great villain and everything, I feel like the story just got way better in Inazuma, but it took Genshin quite a while for us to reach Inazuma. So with that being said, Star Rail I think has a better story, at least in my opinion. The story is a bit better than Genshin, especially during the beginning parts of the game, because it managed to catch me in. It managed to capture me and have me invested in the story. And I think that's all that matters. As long as I'm invested in the story, I'm gonna like it. And I think also the main reason why I'm so attracted with the story is because it is sci-fi. I like fantasy as much as the next guy, but it's such a common tropes in JRPG that I just brush it away. So to have a JRPG, to have a gacha game set in a sci-fi world, it piqued my interest. And obviously this is just personal preference, of course, but I can't be the only one that think that having a sci-fi JRPG is a lot more interesting compared to that of a fantasy world. Another reason why I really like Star Rail is the writing. Again, the story is simple and straightforward, and that's because the writing is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but also still managed to draw me in with some of the more heavy and emotional parts of the game. That being said, though, the character writing is incredible. I really, really like the character writing. I haven't had this much fun reading character dialogue, character interactions since I first played Persona 5. The characters, of course, all have their own distinct tropes, their own distinct personalities, but they never feel exaggerated. They never feel over the top where I have to distract you with everything that's going on. The way they talk seems like regular people, and not to mention some of the dialogue options that they have in this game are pretty funny. One of my favorite parts of JRPGs or gacha games is to choose the funnier choice that they have. So when presented the option, I would most likely choose the funnier option just to see how the characters react. And part of the fun of this game is to choose the funny option and to see how much reacts to what you choose. And not to mention the references. My god, there are so many references. From Fight Club to Breaking Bad, there are way too many references than I would have ever imagined to have in this game. The references never really feel out of place and they usually fit the context of what's going on, which is pretty hard to do in my eyes. So the fact that they're able to do it in a really good manner deserves some applause because that was really good of them. The voice acting is really good, of course. I really, really like the voice actor for the Trailblazer. I play as a female Trailblazer, and I also play in dub because I prefer to play JRPGs in dub. And it's really funny. They speak a lot more than I would have imagined, especially when compared to Genshin. The Traveler just barely speaks. So whenever the Trailblazer does speak, which is pretty often, is sometimes pretty funny.
Wow, the cringe is strong.
Moving on, I wanted to talk about probably the best part of the game and why I'm so addicted to it, and that's the gameplay. Now, as much as I love Genshin, the world building, the story, the characters, whatever, the reason why I have a love hate relationship with Genshin is largely due to the gameplay. Is it fun? Yes. Is it impressive? Yes. Is it impressive that this level of gameplay is available to you for free and on your phone? Yes. Is it tedious? Absolutely. Gacha games rely heavily on grinding, and Genshin is no different. You have to grind so much in order to level up your characters, in order to progress through the story and whatever. Because of this, most games nowadays have this thing called an autoplay feature. Arknights, Azure Lane, Nikke, a lot of these games have an autoplay feature so that you can save time when playing it. Because of the nature of Genshin's gameplay, an autoplay feature is pretty much impossible. It's pretty much non-existent in Genshin because of the nature of Genshin's gameplay. This to me makes the grinding so tedious and it feels almost like a chore. Like yeah, you can do your dailies in like 10-15 minutes tops, but the fact that you have to sit down, open up your phone, open up your laptop, whatever you play the game from, and just spend 15-10 minutes playing the game, to me it's not fun. To me it's very tedious. To me it's very time consuming, and as someone who does not have as much free time anymore, I don't want to spend that much time to play a game where I'm only going to be able to play 15 minutes of because I'm not enough level to do anything else. And yeah, I just really can't be bothered to play a game that just takes way too much time. With something like autoplay, I don't have to worry about time consuming whatever. I could just boot up the game on my phone and click a few buttons and set it aside while the game plays, and I'll do something like work or whatever. Star Rail shares the same open world elements as Genshin, but instead of the action style gameplay, it has a turn-based system which is very similar to a lot more traditional JRPGs. The gameplay is what I imagine Enfield to have. You know Enfield, everyone knows Enfield, everyone remembers Enfield, everyone except Hippogriff of course because it's been years and we still have no news about Enfield, so yeah, because it's turn-based system, this to me is way more fun. It's a lot more relaxed I say where you still have to sort of time your moves whatever, especially in some of the more difficult fights, but because the nature of the game is turn-based, it has an autoplay system. It makes sense to have an autoplay system. So for some of the more easier fights, you can just click the autoplay feature and the game will play for you. This saves so much time from doing dailies because I could just boot up the game, click a few buttons, and then just let it play while I do my work, or in this case, recording a video. Now that I mentioned that, while I'm recording this video, I'm actually having the game play on the side, and you can actually see here. Yeah, the game is playing. So I can record this video while also doing my dailies, doing grinding or whatever, which is again really great. This makes farming for EXP materials or essential materials whatever way more easier and way less time consuming. And as someone who again doesn't really have a lot of free time anymore, anything to help save time is just a blessing. Again, this is just personal preference, of course. Some people might not be fan of turn-based systems and much more prefer the action style gameplay that Genshin has. But again, for me, this is just way better. It saves a lot more time and it doesn't really take as much effort to play compared that to of Genshin. And because of this feature, it solves 50% of the issues that I have with Genshin. I love Genshin, but a lot of the issues that I have with Genshin is the gameplay, is how tedious and how taxing it is. And in that regard, I think Sariel, to me at least, is better than Genshin. Now, the reason I say 50% is because the other 50% of the issues that I have with Genshin is still prevalent in Star Rail. One of the issues is the compensation. I don't think it's easy to get the premium currency in Star Rail, similar to that of Genshin. I do feel like it's a lot more generous in Star Rail, but it's still taxing, I guess. It's still quite difficult to get the premium currency, so it's a bit difficult to do the gacha rolls, which is also a big issue that I have with Genshin, is that the gacha I feel like is just so stingy. The fact that you 90% of the time would have to rely on pity, and not only that, you also have to rely on 50-50, is to me very stupid. And a lot of times you have to sort of grind really hard if you really want that character, because otherwise you might not get that character. And to me that's a major downside to Genshin. Now again, I've played games that have stingy gacha, but it's easier to do the 10 rolls, and with Star Rail it's not easy to do the 10 rolls. It requires a lot of grinding, it requires a lot of patience, which I don't have. So with that in mind, I feel like they should have made it a lot more, well, not a lot more, but a bit easier to get the character that you want. And another thing is also the fact that you also have multiple banners instead of just a character banner. You also have to, well, not have to, but you also could roll for a support card banner, which I'm always not a big fan of. I don't like gacha games that require you or that have you roll for two different things for characters and for support cards. Uma Musume, as much as I really love the game, you really need to have good support cards if you want to do well in the game. With Genshin, I've never bothered to touch the weapon gacha because the gacha is already so bad, so I much rather spend all my premium currency on getting the characters that I want rather than getting a good weapon. And same goes for Star Rail. I'm probably not gonna spend my premium currency on the support cards because I much rather have the character that I want than a support card because again the gacha is to me so damn stingy, and that's one of the reasons why I have a love-hate relation with Genshin, and that issue is of course not yet solved in Star Rail, so it leads me to believe that any Hoyoverse game, the gacha is gonna be pretty stingy. At least, in my opinion, it is. With all that being said, though, Honkai Star Rail still manages to exceed my expectations. Although it doesn't solve a lot of the issues that I have with Genshin, it solved one big part of the issue, and that covered with a lot of the other positive sides that I said about the game. I am enjoying this game so far. It is so much fun, and I am just way too addicted to this game at this point. If you like Genshin, but you're not a big fan of the grinding aspect of it, and you prefer sci-fi, then go ahead and play Star Rail. Yes, it's still a gacha game, which is another topic, but it's still a good game, and as long as you're having fun with it, then go for it. I'm really excited to see where this game goes because, as far as I'm concerned, the train has just departed the station and is heading to the unknown, and I am all here for it. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see more, and I see you guys in the next one. Peace.